everyone. Kellen Brauer from Racer X back again with another race examination to kick off the start of motocross. And I wanted to give Jett Lawrence some huge props on this whole shot in 450 Moto 2 because he absolutely yarded the field going to the first corner, which is something that happens with these guys. If you're a rookie on a 450 and you have that extra power for the first time, you tend to launch out of the gate a little bit better. So cool to see Jett rip a huge whole shot in the second moto. He whole shot both motos on the way, but wanted to talk about the second corner here because both second motos had crashes going into the second corner. This is Adam Cianciullo crashing right out of, well, really into the second corner of that second 450 moto. And interestingly enough, if you see AC right here through the whole shot line, he's perfectly lined up to go to the inside ruts and follow everybody in. He's only behind, what, 5 guys right here going into this into the second corner. But he's going to choose to jump to this outside line and hit this berm thing out here. And so he kind of lays into the berm, but as it hits, it knifes the front end down. And at this point, he's pretty much going down. His foot is behind the front of the bike, so he's not able to jab the foot down to try to stand the bike back up, and the front end is knifing downwards, so he just slides down, and then Ryan Surratt unfortunately runs over his bike and then goes down, and AC had to pick it up way down the field and come all the way through the field, as did Surratt. But if we go back to the second 250 moto off the start, RJ Hampshire, who won the first moto, goes down in the second corner as well. And this one, he's a little bit more buried, but he decides to go to the inside, and he goes down, and he's kind of hung up behind everybody going through the corner. So I wanted to talk about something here because, interestingly enough, Denny Stevenson on Twitter said, "Note to MX Sports, clean up the first and second turns so these guys aren't blindly going into braking bumps and ruts with 39 other riders." And RJ Hampshire responded to that tweet and said this. So he clearly thinks that this is something that MX Sports should look into about cleaning up the second turns, because Hampshire here is just kind of stuck in the middle of the pack. There's a lot of roost being kicked up. And if the second corner is this rough, I mean, even more guys back here are getting stacked up. If the second corner is this rough going into it, I mean, there's really just kind of sometimes nowhere to go, and you can't even see the ruts with all the roost getting kicked up like this. So unfortunately, Hampshire went down. I don't think the AC situation is the same deal. I think that was just going outside and hitting a rut wrong. But I'm curious what you guys think in the comments about this. Is this something where MX Sports should look into, maybe thinking about cleaning up coming into the second corner of the race, maybe leaving the ruts so it's still a decent racetrack at that point? But yeah, curious of everyone's thoughts on that situation, because clearly Hampshire has an opinion, and he thinks that it'd be better if they clean up going into those second corners. So let's actually jump back to the 450 Moto, and I wanted to talk about this late moment for Jett Lawrence in 450 Moto 2, because Moto 1, he pretty much walked away, but second Moto, he did get high-centered in this rut when Chase Sexton was trying to catch up to him late, and it nearly made a battle. And I wanted to talk about this because we did post it for Save of the Day, but I feel this gets a little bit overlooked. So first of all, it starts with Lawrence kind of landing in between this big notchy rut on the inside and this lower rut just to the right side. So he's a little bit in between both of them. He doesn't land perfectly in either one. And so he kind of slides into that rut, which, you know, weights his balance to the inside of the pegs a little bit and forces him to kick to the other way. Now, curiously enough, there's going to be this little rise on this rut that everyone's taking this inside rut or the second rut right here. This little rise right here, Jett's tire is going to go up it. And if it goes over this little inside part of the rut right here and falls to this outside rut, I think he goes down 100%. I think he cross-ruts and goes down, but it just kind of perfectly folds to this inside rut, and he's able to just perfectly stand it up. Basically comes to a stop, but overall a nice save. Like, I don't feel like it got enough credit for how well balanced that ended up being, especially because if he crashes right there, he hands over the overall win to Chase Sexton, because Sexton would win the moto, go 2-1 and win the overall. But then Jett was able to steam on through and win in his 450 debut, and clearly he was really pumped and excited about it. Really good at Fox Raceway too, so Jett Lawrence keen to continue racing at Fox Raceway in the future, I would have to say. I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by Onyx Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app. Access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Use the code RACERX, that's RACERX, for 20% off when you download the Onyx app today. Let's talk a few things from this 250 class, starting off in 250 Moto 1 early, as Hunter Lawrence is going to make this pass on Jett Reynolds, and Haiden Deegan is coming up from behind both of these guys, and then Deegan's going to come up the inside of Reynolds and then go down kind of front end tuck. And it was really weird because initially it just looked like, oh, maybe Deegan hit a rock or something, or just, you know, slipped the front tire coming off of this single. But if you watch it a little more closely, I think Reynolds right here is going to dab his leg just trying to stand the bike up going through this rut. And then his leg right here is going to kick Deegan's front tire right there. It's like he actually like swept the leg, a little bit of Karate Kid action right there, just taking Deegan's front tire out with his leg. I don't think I've ever actually seen someone like lift a front tire up with their own boot. Now, obviously, that's a little bit momentum based with Deegan just kind of running up the foot and less so an actual kick from Jett Reynolds, but just kind of a weird instance that if you didn't really look closely at that, you wouldn't realize that that's why Haiden Deegan went down right there. I thought it was a rock, but turns out it was Jett Reynolds' boot kicking Deegan's front tire, and he ended up going down. It's a funny little situation right there. Joe Shimoda at one point was battling RJ Hampshire for the lead in this first moto, and then Cross-Rut's going up the face of this little kind of triple jump that everyone was hitting in the rollers and ended up going down. I wanted to highlight how this happened. So first of all, he's notched in this little outside rut, and what's going to happen is it's going to kick him just to the right. You can see the balance that he has now is leaning over the left side of the bike, and the bike is kind of floating to the right, so he's just using his body positioning to kind of land back up on top of the bike. But what ends up happening is his front tire is going to go to the right in this rut right here, and his back tire is going to kind of land on the gas and swoop back over to the left and go to that rut. So you can see like he is fully cross-rutted here. The back tire is in this left rut right here, and the front tire is in this right rut right here. And it's a full cross-rut situation. So actually a pretty nice job in the end for Shimoda, A, to not go down harder, because that could have easily been like a high side to heavy swap and down situation, and B, to land as softly as he did, because he kind of pile drove into the face of this next little single jump. So nice little easy crash right there. But before that, I wanted to go back to this moment, because Shimoda initially relinquished the lead by going to the outside in this sequence of corners right here. So he's got a pretty decent gap on Hampshire right here. He kind of messes up the table, and then he chooses to go to this outside line. So Hampshire is going to swoop down the inside and make the pass for the lead with this really just kind of innocuous, easy move up the inside, and then goes to defend and pushes to the outside. In the next corner, Joe tries to fight back on the inside, but Hampshire takes the lead. And the reason I bring this up is because later in the moto, once Shimoda got going after his crash, he's right behind Max Voland right here, and Hunter Lawrence is on him from 4th place, and Shimoda's in 3rd. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I feel like based on going to the outside early in the moto and losing the position, he decided at all costs, I'm going to defend, go to the inside right here in this corner, but he gets stuck behind the lapper, and Lawrence swoops around the outside of him right there. So Joe Shimoda not having a very fun time in that particular corner, 2 corners after the finish here at Fox Raceway. But that's the way it goes sometimes. As we move on to the second moto, off the start, we already talked about the Hampshire situation, but I feel like not talked about much was Jeremy Martin had 2 bad starts off the start of both motos. This one, he ended up going down, but I don't feel like anybody even talked about how this whole thing happened. So first of all, you had Tom Vialle 2nd, Jett Reynolds right here 3rd, and then Ryder DiFrancesco right here, Haiden Deegan on the inside, and then Max Voland right here on the KTM just behind him. So coming into this corner, you're going to see Reynolds and DiFrancesco are already on the brakes, and they're following Tom Vialle to this inside line. Haiden Deegan right here gasses it up a little bit more to go to the outside, and now Voland starts getting on the brakes to go to the inside. So he's left his braking really late for this inside. You see he's locking the rear tire all the way up to the inside, but he clearly tells he's about to make contact with DiFrancesco, so he starts to lay it down into him, and that's what causes him to go down. He just kind of hits him, little slide out, and then J-Mart runs into the back of him, gets the front tire caught in the rear wheel well right there behind Voland, and kind of goes over the bars. And then I believe this is Schwartz right here that also runs into the back of both of them, and he also goes down. So tough break right there for a couple guys that really had pretty good starts in that second moto. It would have been nice to see what J-Mart could do. Jordan Smith also getting hung up, and then Voland would get going kind of about mid-pack-ish right there. So tough break for those guys, and then Hampshire coming through behind everybody. But they all followed Hunter Lawrence home in this one. He ended up going 3-1 to win the overall. And that's kind of huge because Lawrence did say he crashed early in the week and damaged his ribs a little bit in his midsection of his body. So to break through and still win this thing was a pretty big thing to kick off the season. And Hunter Lawrence has the momentum rolling into Hangtown.